Well, hello and welcome to our backyard garden in the South Carolina upstate. We're in Greer, South Carolina on Sunday morning. It's October 26th. This is our last episode for the month of October here in 2025. It's a little on the cool side. It's about 55 degrees. I won't say overcast, but it's definitely pretty cloudy. It's supposed to be cloudy all day. So not one of our all-star days. The last few weeks we've had some really beautiful early fall weather, but that would not apply to today, unfortunately. This is more like what we were used to in Ohio. So we're going to just go through the flowers and plants that we have here in the backyard over the next few minutes. Start with these daisies. These have been blooming now for the last 3 or 4 weeks. They're getting close to finishing up. I don't see any more buds, so this may actually be the last week that we have any flowers on this plant. But it's been a nice bloomer here in the upper part of the backyard. Blooms in the spring and then again in the fall, like a lot of our plants in this garden. Above those are a lot of irises, and these should really go crazy once spring starts. Giving us both white and light blue and dark blue blooms when the time comes. Over here we have Cleome. These are just about finished. I think we just have this one that has any color on it left, and that'll be done probably this week. I leave these up just long enough for their seed pods to mature. So at every level, these keep getting higher and higher, and eventually they get, about 4 feet in height. And at each level, when the flowers are finished, you get these seed pods. And right through here is probably the best example. They look like string beans, and they just put out little tiny black seeds that fall into the ground, and then you get a whole crop of these next year. And that's why I let them do their thing, so that we don't have to keep replanting them every year. But they've been pretty consistent bloomer for us for quite a while now, and we'll look forward to those next year. Over here is our pokeweed that was kind of a mid summer addition. It just sort of came up on its own. These are very popular down here as an ornamental flower, although they're really considered primarily a weed. It's an interesting plant, very colorful. The stems are all bright red, and the leaves are start off green, of course, and then turn more reddish as the year goes on. And then they have these black berries that develop. And I always say every week, do not eat the berries. They are very poisonous. But the plant itself is very pretty. Hopefully it'll come back next year. I've come to really embrace this since it's found its way into our garden, especially since it's still giving us some color. Now our hydrangeas through here are all done, and just in the past week or so, really seen them go through their late season transition from white and pale green to the brown color of the seed pods. And you can actually see some of the seeds in here, and we don't really get these regrowing. So even though they put out seeds, there's nothing that really comes from them. And probably a good thing, because these plants get so big. Right now, these right in this area are about 7 or 8 feet tall, and really starting to dominate this side of the garden. And if you look over at our neighbor across the fence, they have a similar one back there. It's probably, I'm going to say, about 12 to 15 feet in height. So these things get basically as large as you allow them to get. But it's nice for a border like this. And so it's just a matter of how much of a border we want. I don't want to keep having the bed encroach on the yard, but at some point you have to kind of trim these things back, or they will take over. Now, other things that we have in the garden, which pretty much are all finished now, we have Asiatic lilies, and some of their seed pods are huge. They kind of look like little cucumbers. But I've just let them grow, and they've got a lot of seeds. I don't know if anything will come of those. Usually this is more of a bulb type plant, but it'd be interesting to see if we get more over time. We've had some other like roses, little knockout roses, a little petite knockout rose here. We'll see if that comes back next year. We have a big butterfly bush here. This is finished for now. Another knockout with some clematis growing on top of it. That'll come back in the spring. Little bit of impatience here. This was not a good year for impatiens, and I don't think I'm going to plant those next year. I think I'm kind of done with those. They've been too erratic, unfortunately. One thing that has not been erratic, and it's actually been a really enjoyable plant, is this digitalis. Now this is a spring bloomer, but it has put out a handful of flowers here in the fall. They usually get really tall, about 2 feet or so, and put out a lot of colors, pinks, purples, whites, yellows, all kinds of things. We've got a big viburnum back here. This will give us some beautiful white flowers in the spring, and then right next to it is our one really successful azalea back here. Now these bloom twice a year. We had blooms just like this in the spring, and again here in late September and early October, still giving us all kinds of color. Now that's one of 6 azaleas that we have back here. 2 of the others have a lot of blooms on them, just not quite as many, not quite so much color, but still enough to make them worthwhile, worth looking at. I'll take any color I can get this time of year, because really everything else is just about finished up. There's still a lot of greenery back here. We have some hostas back here and some excuse me, wisteria along the fence here. These will really make a presence known in the spring when they get all their big purple flowers. But we'll come back over this way. Everything else is done in here. We had daylilies and roses and so forth. A couple daisies that are left, a couple zinnias that are left. Not a whole lot though. Big knockout rose here, big bright red one. But it's pretty much finished. I don't see any more buds on that. A few more daisies here. Got a big camellia here. This will bloom in about 3 months, usually late January, February, early March. And it has some buds on it already. These will be big red flowers with yellow centers, and hopefully we'll get lots of those next year. Same thing over here. We have 4 camellias in the back, and they have grown quite a bit over the years. So we get both red and kind of a peppermint looking variety that's really nice as well. Big climbing rose here. It's largely done, although I do see a couple of buds, so we may still get a little bit more color on this before the end of the year. Got a little spiderwort here, which is I think pretty much done for the year. Got a vinca here, worth mentioning. I've talked about this the last couple of weeks. We put in vinca several years ago, and we only had to do it one time, and the seeds from the flowers would reseed, and they would come back all through. You're really dense with new flowers in the spring. Didn't happen this year. This is the only, well, these 2 are the only 2 that we have in the entire backyard. Don't know why, and they've waited until now to start blooming, which is just sort of odd. And they actually have quite a few little buds on them. So until we get our first frost, which right now looks like it's going to be at least another 10 days, if not longer, we should continue to get some of the little vinca flowers there. And speaking of flowers, we have these little natural woodland flowers. I don't know the name of it. This went in a few years ago, and we don't know what it's called, but it's a pretty little flower, still blooming. It's been blooming off and on really throughout the entire season, which is kind of nice. Got a tea rose over here, which still has some life left in it for the year. We've got a nice big bud here, nice big bud over here. So we're gonna get some more red roses off of that before the end. This pink one back here, I think it's done for the year. And then another camellia here, another daisy here. These little things that don't look too good right now, these are calla lilies. This is absolutely one of my favorite plants in the entire garden. Sure doesn't look like it now, but these come back each year and they put out absolutely gorgeous flowers. We have about 6 different varieties in the garden, and they've done extremely well. And we've got a butterfly bush that's actually still blooming. All the others are long since finished up, but this one's still giving us some of these bright purple flowers. It's certainly not fully in bloom, but as I say, still some life left in it for this year. I've chopped this one way back, and that may be part of the reason that it's come back. It was just sort of overflowing out into almost into the yard, and I cut a lot of that back. And that's what you really need to do with butterfly bushes. They have a tendency to just get completely out of control. I did that in the front yard at the beginning of this year, and it made a big difference. So coming through here, there's really nothing that's still going. We have gladiolus and some daylilies and some other things, but they're all finished for 2025. So we'll come back over here. We have this big weeping cherry. It'll give us some nice little dainty flowers in the springtime. This is our big wisteria here. Again, it'll give us huge tufts of purple flowers when the time comes next spring. This is the base of this wisteria, and this just starts out as a vine, but you start to realize this thing is a tree. It just grows more horizontally than vertically, and has vines going every which way. I do need in the spring to get back in here. You can kind of see this area needs some help. These are all clematis, and they are all they all look dead, but they just need to be trimmed back a little bit. They grow everywhere, and then the up on the under the weeping cherry, the wisteria has just gone crazy, and I don't want the wisteria to take over the tree, so I'm going to have to chop that back. But I'm going to wait until the blooms in the spring are done, and then I'll take that on. And over here I've done a lot of work sort of clearing this away. This was really choked with weeds and so forth for most of the summer, and I put a lot of, you can see a heron going by. Let's see if we can get a good view of him before he disappears. There he goes. We get all kinds of birds through here. You can hear songbirds in the background all the time, and we get geese and ducks and hawks and owls and herons and just about everything you can imagine. It's a wonderful place down here. We really enjoy our location. We're about halfway between Greenville and Spartanburg, and we're not out in the country, even though it kind of looks like it. We're actually right in the middle of the city. There just happens to be a pond in our backyard. This was part of a farm that was here many years ago, and right across the way is Greer Memorial Hospital, and they actually own this pond. But it really has its own ecosystem with all kinds of birds and insects, and we've had beavers coming through here, deer, all kinds of things. So looking back over at the garden, we've got our canna here. They're all done for the year. I've said many times, this is probably my least favorite plant in this garden, because they're fairly high maintenance, and you don't really get a huge yield in terms of actual flowers. There's so much greenery, so much vegetation, and they tend to spread very aggressively, and you have to stay on top of them, or they get completely out of control. And as an example, they kind of jumped over this area. I have them sort of boxed in with railroad ties, but they did jump over into this area this year, and I've really had to work at pulling them out and keeping them from taking root, because they'll just take over this whole bed next, and I don't want that. So this area is more for black-eyed Susans, as you can see here, and daylilies and irises. So the garden is certainly nothing you can ever just sit back on and let nature take over, or you won't have a garden. It'll just be weeds and the few aggressive flowers that have a tendency to just go everywhere. And again, same thing over here, a lot of irises. But if I'm not careful, this is a canna trying to grow up through here, so I have to keep pulling these darn things out. But they're never ending. Once they get established in an area, they're kind of like hollies. We've had similar problems with those. But these are all daylilies over in here. I'm trying to protect those so that they don't get overridden. But one thing that would help, certainly if I did a better job of it, was fertilizing the soil. I don't think it's the best soil back here, and hopefully that's something I will have time and energy to do next year. So up on the trellis, I've been trimming that back a little bit. It has gotten kind of out of control, and it's a mixture of jasmine, which is another plant that grows aggressively and everywhere you let it, and climbing roses and clematis. And there's some other things up in there too. There's some Virginia creeper, which has been very aggressive. That's actually one of the fastest growing things I've ever seen. And I've had to really go after those aggressively. And we even have a few wisteria that have worked their way over into this area. But anyway, I'm gonna head up towards the house and kind of finish things up. There's a couple little surprises up there that I noticed before I started the video. Over here, this is a little tea olive that I was going to say the last couple of weeks it had some flowers on it, and they're almost all gone. I do see a couple that are left here, not much. This is another one that blooms twice a year, and so we get some of these in the spring and again in the fall. And up the side of the house we have a lot of hostas. They're all pretty much done for the year. And then over here, these roses, you would think they were done, but here we go. This looks like, middle of April. Gorgeous, fragrant purple rose. We had some others here just over the last few days, but they are all finished up. This one I think is done for the year. And another one over here, this beautiful white rose, is blooming. And we've got a couple others that are coming up probably in the next week or so. So we'll still have some color, new leaves on this one. Not sure why it's gone so crazy, but it's nice to see. Not to mention the marigolds. These have just established themselves. Some of the seeds that had washed down from the deck when we were putting things together back in the spring, and they've just grown on their own, along with a couple of zinnias. And we got some tomatoes over here that are still hanging on. Not the most edible. They're kind of chewy. They're not the greatest, but they're red and they're kind of fun to grow. We have a big variety of cherry tomato here. I think this is the last actual tomato on this plant. We've had a few out of that, a few tomatoes that have come out of that this year, and another rose up here that's getting ready to bloom. Nice lavender color, again very fragrant, beautiful climbing rose. And talk about surprises. Now these are daylilies and these are standard spring flowers, but here out of nowhere it has thrown this little branch up with some buds on it. So we're going to get some daylilies even in late October. It might even be November when these open up. I'm just hoping that they will beat the frost, because if it freezes, those will be finished. And then up in here, this is our big climbing rose. This thing is obviously the full, goes the full height of up to the second level of the deck. And just keeps putting out these beautiful pink flowers all through the season. And we'll continue to get flowers into November. And as I'm trying to get a good picture of one of these, when these open up, this is a good example right through here. On the same branch, you'll get these long branches that put out, you know, maybe as many as 100 flowers. And you get a nice combination of light pink and dark pink. Now, a lot of times, once you look at these things and they've been out in the sun for a couple of days, they get bleached and they're all the same pale color. But when they're coming out, you get the varieties of color, and I just find that very interesting. So the plants have their own ability to vary the color from one flower to the next. So that is about it. There's not really anything worth looking at up on the deck. We have some marigolds up there, but they're all just about finishing up. They're kind of sad at this point. So we're just going to take a look at these one more time and call it a day. So again, this finishes up October for us, and we'll be back in November. We'll keep doing these until we get the first frost, and as long as there's color and anything worth looking at, I'll do these videos, and we'll start it up again come February, when we have some more spring stuff to look at. Usually daffodils start to come out, and as the camellia, as I mentioned, and a few other things. So probably early to mid-February, depending on what our weather is like, you'll see us again. But we'll be back next week and do episode 35. So until next time, hope it's sunny wherever you are, and happy gardening.